Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I'm here with Agent Rachel Luba. And obviously with COVID-19 going around, it's been a little bit of a tough time, but kind of depending on how you look at things, you can flip it around and make something positive out of it. So I wanted to have you here to talk about a little bit about what agents do normally during the season and kind of what you've been doing now that season isn't going on. And then some of the positive things that we've been trying to accomplish and that you've been putting in place for all the Luba Sports clients and the Luba Sports infrastructure. So I guess to start it off, what do agents normally do right now? Because it's in season for us, but it's kind of off season for you, correct?
Yeah, so this is definitely, the baseball season is definitely my off season, or it's just a little bit slower because the contracts aren't being negotiated. So a lot of it is just traveling around, visiting clients, going to see them play, going to see prospective clients, just a lot of traveling, which obviously is not happening right now because there's no baseball. So, I mean, I've used this time to, given that my agency is relatively new, I launched it this past off season. So just taking the time to kind of build out the infrastructure of it, in order to and make more connections and kind of build out my services so that I have something, better that I can offer my clients when baseball does resume. So everything from, just networking, finding good financial advisors that I can recommend to my clients that I trust, building out more of the marketing and the PR side of the agency and what we can offer. The player development connections, whether it's, strength and conditioning or nutrition, just a lot of the networking part and the analytics and scouting reports that we can offer players.
Yeah. So normally you'd be spending a lot of time in stadiums right now. What are you missing most about stadium life?
Well, I was trying to knock off all the ballparks. So I think I have like 7 left.
You've been to that many?
Yeah.
Are you going to beat me? I think I still have like 3 or 4 more. No, there's stadiums I haven't been to.
Which ones?
I haven't been to.
You haven't played. I thought you've been to all of them.
No, I haven't played or been to Mets Field, City Field. And I've been to Petco,
I was going to try to go to that.
I've never played in Petco, so that's a little bit. I think there's one other one too.
A few times.
I still haven't crossed all of them off my list, so you might be able to beat me on that one. But it sounds like you've been staying pretty busy, so
yeah.
You're missing.
I'm missing the try. It's weird. I keep checking my Delta app. So I think I'm missing flights. Like, oh shoot, where am I? And
yeah.
it's weird being in one place. But I guess I'm trying to embrace that part of it, which I think is something kind of nice, for players too right now, because you guys have never had this time, even in the off season. I don't know, it's at the holidays and you're traveling around a bunch, but you can't really travel right now. So I think for a lot of players, it's kind of a unique time where, you kind of just get to chill in one place.
Yeah.
So taking advantage of that, and then also, building out, doing a lot of work with you and the 2 other pitching coaches that I represent and help, like, working on, their goals and what they want to accomplish during this time. And obviously we spend a lot of time with you mapping that out and mapping out free agency and what's that going to look like.
Yeah, I want to get into that for sure. One thing though, I think for a lot of viewers, they don't understand exactly all the things that agents have their hands in or that they can help with. So just, briefly, if you want to give people a rundown, I mean, the agents they're only in the public eye really when there's a contract going on with a big free agent, right? What are all the things? What are some of the things that agents have their hands in? I mean, I know for me, you've been involved with, anything from shipping my car to spring training, finding apartments, overseeing my business operations. But what are some of the things that you might do for clients of yours?
Really, it just depends on, I think, the client. Some are, we would say, high maintenance, which isn't a bad thing, but they just, they're agents theoretically are here to provide, X, Y, and Z services. And so, there are players that take advantage of it and there are players that don't. So, I have there are clients that I rarely hear from, or it's when they need, whatever, if they need their contract, they help with their contract, I hear from them. Otherwise, they kind of go about their business and just, they don't really need my help. And I know that's with a lot of agencies. You'll talk to a lot of players that don't, they talk to their agent maybe, a few times, maybe a handful of times during the season, but that's it.
Yeah.
And then there, guys like you who, and again, it's not a bad thing, but, and you're paying for these services, like they provide value to you, but, whether it's booking reservations for your, team dinners for you, or, shipping your car, or figuring out your lease situation in Cincinnati, or, going over legal contracts with Momentum, helping with, pitching the show, like shows that you guys are creating, building out your brand, like whatever it is, obviously there's a lot more involvement. And, that's, I think, the nice thing about how my agency's set up with the a la carte services. I can give you, like, I'm incentivized to do work for you, right? That's how I make money. And, if you want something, like you pay for it and you'll get value in return. Whereas I think it's difficult for a lot of agencies just that are a lot bigger, and they charge a percentage because every player there is paying the exact same percentage. So,
and it's based on, the percentage is based on on-field contract.
Right.
So once that's done, the payment is pretty much finished.
Yeah. So everything else, there's no, if you're sitting here asking this agency with their limited personnel to service the clients, saying you want, X, Y, and Z, and, what's not to say that the other client over here, who he might be a bigger star than you, and he's going to look at it and like, hey, I'm paying the same percentage.
Yeah.
Dollar-wise, it might be a lot more that he's paying, and why aren't you spending time on me? And they don't necessarily have the personnel either it doesn't make financial sense just to go out and hire more people to service for these miscellaneous things, not related to on the field.
Yeah, for
sure. This model at least lets me be able to give that personalized,
it's
attention.
Customizable.
Right.
If a player wants
if you want something,
all of it, then players are willing to pay for it. I mean, I know I'm willing to pay for it. If I want a service, I'm more than happy to pay for it, but I want that service delivered, as opposed to having everybody pay for everything, under-delivering, and then some people don't even want services, and you might not even be able to deliver because you have so many.
Yeah, most agencies offer, they're full service. They offer a wide variety of things, especially when they go and pitch you, and these are all the things we can give you. But when it comes down to it, I think a lot of players end up realizing either one, they just don't need them, they don't take advantage of them, they don't need them, or they're really not as readily available as I think it might seem.
Right.
And so to me, it just made more sense that whatever services the players are getting, they pay for.
Yeah. So diving back into the contracts a little bit, because that's really the main focus of most agencies, and a big focus obviously of yours, coming up on, for me anyway, in our working together, like I'm coming up on free agency, and there's been a lot of really tricky situations that have come up, obviously with the shutdown and shortened season or no season or who knows what. There's a lot of really tricky negotiating things that come up, like the PA and MLB have agreed that players will get full service time. So at the end of this year, I will be a free agent regardless if there's a season or not. But then do we evaluate based on 2019 or a shortened 2020? And how does that play in negotiations? And one thing that I think is really interesting about what you do at Luba Sports is the algorithms that you've kind of built, and trying to take some of the guesswork out of negotiations by looking at the numbers and valuing players based on kind of how the teams seem to be doing it. So talk a little bit about those algorithms, what the purpose is for them and how you use them, and how do they fit into a time like this? Does it make your time easier? Does it make it harder? Like, how do you use those right now?
Yeah, so I think the algorithms are, really helpful to kind of predict future value or current value, where the trajectory value-wise of where the player is going. Mm-hmm. That being said, I think it's a really good starting point, but there are like plenty of input stats that much more kind of detailed, nuanced stats that go into these algorithms that make up whatever it's spitting out your value is. So taking those and basically looking at, okay, here's your value. This is what it's telling us. But just numbers alone, like how do we change that? Can we change your value? So using those to then break down, figure out what those input stats are that are creating your value, and how can we make adjustments in those stats to alter your value. Because right now, you don't have a season. Right now, we're going off your 2019 numbers. So how do we argue, that you're not the 2019, pitcher? And
normally I would have a season where it'd be like, that happened in 2019. He was this in 2018, this in 2019, this in 2020. This is all leading into free agency. This is a narrative that gets built, right? Oh, this guy's declining, or this guy's taking off, or he's really hitting his stride, or he's made an adjustment. But now there's this break.
Yeah.
So
now we take, I think, and this is a lot of, the numbers, I guess, are, especially like in the off season, when you train, use the off season to hopefully make adjustments and train and improve. A lot of times you'll see players that come back for the next season and they seem like a very different player because they made an adjustment. And so those algorithms that are spitting out your value, that are, telling your raw kind of value based on the stats, don't necessarily take into account that you made this hitting adjustment. Now, some of the input stats might indicate that you have the makeup to and the fundamentals to potentially make that adjustment, but doesn't mean that you have to physically make it.
Right.
So using the process and making adjustments, and then taking that and increasing your value is something that...
Yes, there's kind of two ways that you can use it. From what I'm understanding you say, you can use it for take the input stats, and then it goes into the algorithm and it says, okay, you're worth this. So for you can go into a room and say, hey, our player's worth this, and it's going to be in the realm of kind of how the team, obviously the team might, individual teams might value this or that a little bit more, but you're going to be in the realm of where you're at. But then it sounds like you think the more important part of it is then for the actual player and the player development side of things. So if these inputs are creating this value and we can increase or train these inputs, then we can actually increase your value. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah. And a lot of times what happens, and you see this like not infrequently, where a team will offer a player like a decent length extension early on for like a good amount of money, but not given the kind of player he is. He's maybe a very average player. And I think a lot of people will kind of question for a second, wonder what was the motive there for why do they want to keep this player around. And there's always a motive for whatever you're offering.
Oh, yeah.
Why do you
always
want that?
Always a motive.
That's what you learn in law school with negotiations. But look, they make that offer, and they, a lot of times players, that money up front early on seems great, and they look at their numbers and they're like, I mean, if I put myself in the market right now, this is kind of my value. It's not looking great necessarily, so I'll take it, right? Security. But what's happening is a lot of times the teams are seeing these input stats. They're seeing the makeup of the player. They're seeing he has the potential that if we make these adjustments, he's going to take off. He's going to be a different hitter, a different pitcher, what have you. So they're offering this deal. The agent and client decide to take it, and then the player development, with the teams kind of helps them make that adjustment. And now you see them take off like the next season, and you're like, oh, whoa, that was such a great deal for the team. Like, had they know, because these advanced stats that they have, like they're able to figure out what the makeup and how can we, if you have the makeup of potentially being a great player, like how can we change those and make adjustments to allow you to, reach your full potential. And so now as an agent and, as a player, if we know those things, it can help us a lot of times when we make decisions as to whether to take an extension. Because if they come to you and offer, this extension, they probably see the same thing we do. And we know, well, if we can use this next off season to make this slight adjustment, we know, your value is going to exponentially increase. So let's hold off.
Yeah.
And then it ends up being a very good thing down the road, because now you'll make a lot more money, assuming you stay healthy.
Yeah.
So, that's always, helpful for, especially I think early on in your career.
How much do you think agencies are involved in player development? Because this is what you're laying out, and I know some of the other things that I know, the in-season, like scouting reports and feedback loops and like just monitoring on a day-to-day basis, making sure clients don't get out of their ranges and all this different stuff that you're able to give. Like, how much do you think other agencies are involved in player development? Because like for me, I show up to a clubhouse and a guy comes in spring training and he's bigger, or he's out of shape, or he's hitting the ball better, or he's struggling, and I just see guys come in and I don't know who they worked out with really, or what they did, or where they got the information from. Is this typical in the industry where agencies are kind of developing these plans for their players, or is this something that's somewhat new or isn't being done as much?
I think it's being done a little more so now. I think it's it depends on the agency. There are a few that I do know value that aspect of the industry and kind of emphasizing it and trying to help players where they can. There are plenty that, maybe they know they have some ideas or some recommendations they can give you of where to train based on where you are. But a lot of times you find that it's just, player to player networking and, hey man, where do you train in the off season, and, kind of getting to know it that way. But look, I think there's a lot of value that comes with, being able to have a really good grasp on that whole side of things, because you move around teams. Most players aren't with the same team, and a lot of times, oftentimes they move teams when they're not even expecting, right? They get traded or what have you. So, having some sort of system and process and group of people that'll work with you, that you trust, that will always be there no matter which team you're on, I think is really important.
Yeah, the integration of it all, I think, is the biggest thing for me, and just seeing the vision that you have for player development and player representation, where all the different aspects are integrated together, where if someone needs help in the player development side, they also have the connections that the agency has in peak performance, health, wellness, etc. If they want help on marketing, you help with the marketing, and you can integrate the marketing with the on-field performance, and you can get creative with that, and then integrate the PR opportunities with traveling for, like, everything's put together and integrated because you have your hands in kind of all of it.
Yeah.
And then because of the way the model is set up, you have the resources to be able to go out and tailor fit a plan for each individual client.
Because I'm also not the expert.
Right.
In everything, and like I don't claim to be, I don't want to be. I know my area and where I can add the most value, and then I want to find the best in these other areas to help my clients, because I can't, no one person can be the best at everything.
Yeah.
So being able to bring a team, and if we look at just the people, I don't know if people really realize like how many people you have on your team. That you've been able to build, we've built this kind of custom fit team that works for you in all different aspects.
Yeah, from the beginning of my training history, like in baseball specifically, I was always taught, be the person that integrates everything, but go out and find all the different experts. Okay, go talk to someone about biomechanics, take that information and talk to a physical therapist, talk to a strength trainer, talk to an analytics guy and strategist. And then I'm moving this way, which is probably why I'm feeling like this. My physical therapist says I need to do this different. So in order to make that movement, I might need to train this way. So I need to get stronger over here. And it's like assembling all these different areas. And I have a bunch of different areas, biomechanics, medical, physical therapy, strength and conditioning, analytics. I can go down strategy, like mindset, mental game, all these different things I have. So what are some of the things that you put together when you're integrating for a client? What are some of the things that might go into creating that type of team? I mean, we've done player development and stats and contracts, but there's other just like PR. There's like what else?
And again, but it depends on what the player wants.
Right.
There are a lot of players that, look, I need my contract negotiated, and then, I'm pretty happy where I'm at with my family. I just want to play and go home to them, and, maybe in the off season somewhere to train. But other than that, social media is not a big deal. If building a brand and figuring out, post playing kind of a plan, like where do you want to go? Building that marketing side, that PR side, that's really important. And so, getting a team, of people that can really handle that together for you. Obviously, the financial planning is super important, so that you have finite careers in sports.
Yep.
But making sure that you do what's necessary with that money so that the money can kind of work for you in the future when you're not playing. So, you have your financial planning, you have, player development, health and wellness, making sure that you have, the right strength programs. Because, I found a lot of players will tell me they aren't happy with the strength coaches that this team has. Maybe they like one team over, another. So ones that they're comfortable with, that can also, integrate with if you need a nutritionist, making sure your sleep is good, just everything. It can be as broad as, a player wants, or as just limited and narrow.
Yeah, and because of the model, they're paying accordingly based on the services they get. So for a player that's high maintenance, like me, and just in the sense that I have a lot going on, you obviously are integrated with all that different stuff, baseball and all the stuff that goes into it, strength, conditioning, throwing, working out. During the shutdown, we had to even find a place where I was going to be able to work out.
Yeah.
We had to find a place where I was going to, how am I going to get the food that I normally like to eat? But then also on the business side, so that's like the financials of it, accounting, finding business manager or connections of potential partners or different things like that you're involved in.
All your investments.
And all that financial planning, all that different stuff. Talk about the team that we've been able to kind of build up for me on the marketing side, on the PR side, on the strength and conditioning, the development side, the analytics side, because you're involved with all these different. I have, was it 8 or 10? I lost track at this point. People kind of on that team, but you help put a lot of that together. So what's your process in looking at kind of where I'm at and figuring out what could be helpful, or how to advise?
I think it starts with sitting you down and figuring out, what do you want? Like, what's important to you? And again, it's always good to look at the bigger picture first. Whether it's, when you're 10 years after your playing career, like, let's start there. Where do you want to be, ideally? And then let's backtrack to, okay, then getting to just the entirety of your career. Like, what do you want to accomplish? And then everything down to, okay, in this next season, what's important to you? Figuring it out. Whether they're playing goals, whether they're goals or desires of where you want to live, where do you want to be located. Personal goals, business goals, whatever it is. Yeah. And figuring out, like, what's important to you, and then looking at everything and, okay, how do we accomplish all these things? And, for you, at least during, I think we've taken advantage of this kind of dead period with no baseball, of this is a weird time where, you guys don't, like, you're in one place and, it's almost like the off season kind of, but I would say less really, hectic. Yeah, it's weird. So taking advantage of it, though, and what can we accomplish? And, you and I have sat down and, we've mapped out even just, okay, for this next season, like, when technically the off season would be, like, where do we want you to be in everything, in your businesses and, whatever. And then just going back down to just day to day, like what should you be doing? Who do we need to have working with you to make sure we can accomplish these things? And we have your schedule, mapped out to the 15-minute. You're not quite as good as, incremental as lawyers. They're at the 6-minute billable
You go
hours.
6 minutes?
6 minutes.
So like literally every
6 minutes.
That's good to know. I didn't know you were billing me every 6 minutes. Now I'm going to start cutting you off. I'm going to look at my phone and be like, oh, we're at 5:38. Nope. Click. But okay, so you've been involved in all of that, and it's amazing the amount of progress that we've been able to make, and the amount of stuff that we've been able to get done. Just down to the content planning and when's that going to come out, and what content do we need? What content are fans engaging with? What's the business structure? What do you need to get done on the business side? Hey, here's this consultant to go talk to, whatever. I mean, it seems like it's been very busy, but there's no way that I could get all of that done myself. Like, you've been a huge help because you're spending a lot of time actually doing that, and it just makes me think, like, how much could get done for other players if they have that type of service? And I can't imagine an agency with like 400 players or something that they're able to get the kind of tailor the specific things that they need.
I think you find, at least I kind of noticed when I was at the union, you kind of see how all the agencies work, or just my time, interning at an agency, that there are, they focus, they only have so many hands on deck that can help, a player. So, they focus, and it's changing always, but who's the most high priority player, whether it's who's going to make the most money off on their contract on the field, spend a lot of attention. And a lot of times it's like who they hear rumors, it's a small world, small industry of, my client's unhappy and he's going to jump ship soon. And so suddenly they're the flagged player, and let's spend extra attention to him. And so that's, one of the things.
The grease, right?
Yeah, it's always, when right before they know they're gonna lose you, they'll, to like save it. And I know I had a roommate in law school who did the same thing, and he would piss me off, and just the place was always a mess and never did the dishes. And then it was like he had this sense every time he knew I was about to be like, all right, get the hell out. Like, I'm done. I cannot do this anymore. I'd wake up to like flowers and pancakes. He
Chocolate
knew it.
chip?
Yeah. He knew. But so, he knew what he was doing, but I'm like, all right, well, he did a good job. He kept me around, because anytime I felt, agencies do this too, anytime they feel like they're losing a player, they'll spend a little extra attention. But that attention shouldn't come in waves. It should be there. If you desire to have attention like that all the time, it should always be there.
Yeah.
And if you want very little to do with your agent, then that's how it should be. But you also shouldn't have to pay, the same. So, being able to have an agency that's structured this way that can provide you the services that I know you want, because I know that was something that was difficult for you. For a while, you were like, I need all these things. And
I didn't even know where to go find those things.
Yeah, it was, and I always, the way I understood it, like, okay, you have these full service agencies, like, that's what your agency's supposed to do for you. But it was just, you start to really realize in the way
it's a numbers game, right? Yeah, and incentives, because they get, traditional models get paid on your on-field contract, and once the contract's locked in, then the payment is locked in, and then, it's like, okay, well, we got to go take care of, like you're saying, like, oh, this guy's unhappy, or we need to go do this because that's kind of already taken care of, and we can revisit that in a year or whatever. And they have the best of intentions. It's just it ends up being a numbers game.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I really want to see for players. That's one thing that I'm very passionate about. It's just a better landscape overall for a player on the field, the way that the services and that they're given on the field, the way they're treated, the landscape with the union and negotiations and ability to make money and be successful in the analytics there, but then off the field and the marketing and the business development if they want to go that route, and financial planning so that you don't see so many players get done and not have anything to show for their time playing, and representation and abilities to go out and be in Hollywood or to be in a show or interact with a music artist that they really enjoy. So life experience type stuff. I want to see these things move forward for players, and so that's one thing that just appeals to me so much about the way Luba Sports is set up, because a player can get exactly the tailored attention that he needs to have that better landscape and to really develop something that works perfectly for him. So it just makes me wonder in times like these, like what other players are getting, what services they're getting from their agent, because I know what I'm getting. You've been super involved, and I can't imagine where I would be or how much less productive I would be if I didn't have that tailored attention. So I guess it's a thank you for for all the work that you do. But yeah, I guess in order to keep this one a little bit shorter and not waste everyone's time, we'll kind of cut it off there and give you one last crack at kind of what you see kind of moving forward. Like, what are some things that are on the horizon in the next month or so for you that you're excited about with Luba Sports?
I think just building it out more, being able to help more players, and offer a different type of athlete representation.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's been another episode. Thank you for joining me as always. I think it's good to sit down and talk. A lot of stuff that I obviously know, but hearing you say it and explain it, I learn a lot every time we sit down and talk. So thanks for joining me. Hopefully everyone at home was able to learn something about what agents typically do and what Rachel and Luba Sports does specifically. And if there's anything else you'd like to know about the industry, about Luba Sports in general, or the agent life, or anything in general, leave a comment down below. Love reading those, love interacting with you guys in the comments. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button for me. I have a goal of getting to 100,000 subscribers by the end of 2020. It's one of the goals we talked about when we sat down and put together that goal sheet. Leave me a like. If any friends of yours don't know about the channel and you think they'd find it interesting or entertaining, please let them know. We got a lot of great content coming out soon. Stay healthy, stay happy. Hope everyone's well out there, and hopefully baseball's back soon. See you in the next one.